Well, first and foremost...
Wait a minute, Monocro. There's something I'd like to ask first.
Oh, and what might that be?
Accomplices. Can there be accomplices in a case?
Good question. Whether or not there are accomplices will be a huge factor in deciding the culprit.
A good question indeed. I guess it wasn't specified in the rules. To be blunt, there can be accomplices.
I was also at the bell tower. I met Yuki and Sora there.
The bell tower? But that's the scene of the crime, isn't it? If Sora and Yuki were there because of the message... Yoriko, what were you doing there?
What was I doing?
Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We did get to the top of the bell tower, but Yoriko was the only one up there.
That means Yoriko's the culprit.
What?
Isn't it obvious? Like Emma said, the only way to climb up the tower is by using the stairs. And if you were there, you don't have a good excuse like Yuki and Sora, and you've been looking worried from the start. It's clear to everyone that Yoriko's the culprit. Don't you think so, sister?
Huh? But, Kanade, we just said that Ruko's a witness.
Sis, please just think for a moment. Yoriko doesn't have an alibi. And she has no reason to be in the bell tower if she's not related to the case.
I guess. When you put it that way, Ruko does sound pretty suspicious.
I went outside as soon as the Monocruise's door opened, so I could start my morning investigation before breakfast began. Then someone attacked me from behind, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was at the top of the bell tower next to Sora and Yuki.
Do you have any proof? For example, someone who saw you leave early.
What? No, nobody saw me.
No, that's wrong!
No, we looked around for a bit, but it's an exposed area with almost no furniture around. It would be very difficult for someone to hide themselves up there.
If Yoriko can't explain herself, we have no choice but to assume she's the culprit.
Yeah. Wait, that's not true. I'm not.
Shut up, you Scrooge!
If Sora's right, a man really could have attacked Yuri. But that's no reason to rule out a girl as a culprit.
Of course. She said that the culprit could be a man, not that they couldn't be a woman. For a man like Mr. Kagurine, the idea of him giving up his life to a woman that approached him during the festivities is all too plausible.
Kokoro is telling the truth. It's possible that Yuri never re-entered the Monocruise last night. According to Yoriko, he did return, just much later than everyone else. But isn't it possible that he was attacked and then placed in the bell tower until this morning?
According to that theory, the culprit is one of the people who were drinking late into the night. What do you think, Yoriko? You're one of the people who stayed behind, aren't you?
Well, that's true. But it wasn't me. I got back to the Monocruise with everyone else.
You, Ra-Ra, Mac, Yuko, Mikado, and myself. Just the 6 of us.
Yoriko is nothing but suspicious.
So the culprit's someone that helped with the party and stayed out last night. And they would have to be sober. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, all the evidence is stacked against you.
It's almost undeniable. Or maybe you're just an idiot, Yoriko.
What? Why are you all accusing me? Why me? That proves my innocence, right? Shobai's the one who lied. He's even more suspicious than I am.
I don't know. His testimony might be false, but you're still the most likely suspect.
But we're being cruel to Yoriko, aren't we? We should talk about this some more.
Yoriko is the only one that went to the party and fits all of the criteria.
This one's mine!
We still need to figure out if the party is even relevant to the case.
Knowing Yuri, the killer has to be a woman.
Emma!
We've already established that the murder could have been committed by either a man or a woman.
Ruko's the only one with a super suspicious alibi.
Yoriko! Kokoro and Chobai don't even have alibis! Why are you accusing me?
But, Yoriko, weren't you the only one who handled the food at the party?
Kokodo!
False. Yoriko was not the only one who handled the food at the party.
She could have taken advantage of the fact that we were drunk to forge her alibi.
Shinji!
Yoroku wasn't the only one who wasn't drunk. So shouldn't we suspect the others too?
Yoriko is our only suspect, so there's nothing else we can do.
Setsuka! We haven't even talked about the possibility of another suspect besides Yuko.
This is our answer! Kanade told me that it's similar to the kind used in the operating room during major surgeries.
Yes, you can get some from the infirmary.
Its presence at the bell tower leaves no doubt that the culprit used the anesthetic to subdue Mr. Kagurine.
Wait, do you think that's the same thing the culprit used when they attacked me?
Maybe, but that's besides the point, Yoriko, so be quiet.
Fine.
A syringe?
Yes, you can use that particular syringe to conveniently calculate the sedation time using the scale on the barrel.
That's great and all, but how do you know all this?
I watch a lot of medical dramas. Is there a problem?
I'm not saying there's a problem, but let's review. Assuming the culprit is male, he would only be able to target Yuri after yesterday's party. We still have no idea what happened before nighttime, though. Assuming the culprit is female, she would be able to get to Yuri at any time inside the monocruise. However, she wouldn't have had enough time to prepare for the crime in the morning. Like the other scenario, we still have no idea what happened before nighttime.
About what happened before nighttime. Doesn't it seem possible that the culprit's preparations took place during that time?
What?
Like Kokoro said, anyone can stay outside the monocruise at night using the loophole in the rules. We can't explain how the culprit prepared for their crime during the short time frame in the morning, so we can just assume by default that it took place at night.
That's almost 9 hours. Would it really take them that long to prepare for the murder?
Then, what else did they do?
I see. It was so obvious that I almost missed it. In hindsight, it's clear. Think. Yuri was short, but it's physically impossible for anyone to drag him hundreds of feet out to the bell tower. I doubt even Shinji could do it.
Really? If you used a lever of sorts, it might be possible.
Yes, it's possible. However, we were wrong in our initial assumption that the culprit was the one who pulled Yuri up.
Our initial assumption was wrong?
Oh! So in other words, Yuri was connected to the life jacket by the hooked end of the rope. If the culprit jumped down from the bell tower while wearing the life jacket, Yuri would be pulled by the other end. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Exactly. That's what the culprit did.
This is the truth of the crime scene that Yuki and I witnessed.
Wait a moment. Even if the culprit accounted for the length of the rope, the bell tower is far too tall. If they fell while hanging from just a life jacket with a hook, the force from the landing would dislocate their shoulders.
Now I get it. The wires weren't meant to kill Yuri, but rather to lessen the impact of the fall. This explains why the culprit went through the tedious work of setting up those wires.
Without a doubt.
So, Ruko's not the culprit?
That's what I've been telling you from the start. I'm a victim here too.
That's too bad.
What? What do you mean that's too bad?
Now we have to suspect everyone besides you as the culprit. How are we supposed to narrow it down to the culprit now?
I see. So we're back at the start?
Well, I just stayed up all night once. Based on the previous discussion, we can infer that the culprit is a man. As we already know, a woman would have no reason to use such difficult methods.
It's true that Mr. Kagurine's death would be automatically attributed to a woman due to his previous outburst. So, should a man have committed the crime, the very act of murder itself would become his alibi. A rather clever ploy, I must admit.
Culprit was also part of the group that prepared the party.
Additionally, we figured out that the culprit is a man while discussing the life vest and the murder rehearsals.
The culprit couldn't have planned out their crimes while drunk. So they must have been someone who didn't consume alcohol.
Right! There's no way Hajime's the culprit.
Shinji, please make judgments based on logic, not your friendship. There's plenty of reasons why Hajime is suspicious.
No matter how suspicious I am, I couldn't have done anything while I was drunk.
You both remember? Jeez, why can't I remember?
Even the drunk people remember what happened. Why couldn't you, Yoriko? Because your brain has more air bubbles than last night's booze?
I can't take note of everything while I'm completely absorbed in taking care of drunk people. Why are you being so harsh with me?
Because your bad memory frustrates me. Had you remembered, we could have pinned down the culprit much faster than we did. But thanks to the testimonies from the others, I think we've got the culprit set in stone. Gary must have been completely drunk. He couldn't even walk on his own. In fact, wouldn't he nearly be out cold, considering the fact that he didn't refuse help from a man like Hajime?
So Hajime lied about Yuri going to the washroom and left off with him, then never came back to the Mono Cruise.
Monoko announced the discovery only after we ran to the top and met Yoriko, and she also saw the body.
So, did it go something like this? From Yuri's death to the body discovery announcement, the culprit had extra time to move around while Sora and Yuki climbed up the stairs.
There just wouldn't be enough time, even if Hajime buffed up his strength somehow.
Oh, there'd be enough time, alright. All you have to do is remove a step, and all the pieces fit perfectly into place. Remove a step? Were the stairs the only way down? No. He could have slid down the rope, as if he were riding an elevator. Didn't he already adjust their rope length for that?
Ah, that makes sense.
But wasn't the rope that connected to the life vest also connected to Yuri's body? Yuri died at 7:30 AM, but if he rode the rope at that time, he would have killed Yuri after jumping. That's still a problem.
He just had to get rid of the rope's connection with Yuri. Hajime could have simply yanked out the hook from Yuri's calf while he was carrying Yoriko to the top.
Ew.
Not a lot of people wander outside in the morning, and Hajime would be the first person to enter the bell tower. Wouldn't everything be solved if we assume that he put it back into Yuri's leg?
The culprit took out the hook from his right calf to move down, then hooked it back into Riri's left calf when he returned?
After meeting with Shinji, the only thing left for him was to take his plan into action. So when he saw Yuki and Sora making their way to the top of the bell tower, he jumped down to kill Yuri.
I remember Miss Little Sis saying anyone who fell from that height would get their shoulders crushed.
No, it's not a problem this time. I know this sounds like I'm contradicting my own words, but unlike back then, we know for sure who the culprit is.
The culprit? Are you speaking of Hajime?
Earlier, I said anyone would end up with a shoulder injury because I didn't know who the culprit was. But Hashime's the ultimate boxer. Wouldn't he be able to withstand some degree of impact with his great physique? After all, no one cares more about their health than he does. The life vest also would have absorbed some of the impact, right?
But doesn't that sound a bit unrealistic? And even if he could survive the fall, that doesn't explain why he would bother setting up those wires. Why waste time preparing a braking system when you can just endure the impact in the first place?
Oh, I get it. The fact that they were set up could be so the culprit could use their existence as an alibi. If there weren't any brakes, the second that jumping trick was revealed, our first question would obviously be, who could endure the impact?
Exactly. Of course, he also might have still needed a safety device to lessen the pain of the full impact. Regardless of whether or not Hajime ended up enduring the impact, it's a definitive truth that the culprit jumped twice from the top of the bell tower, and therefore our conclusion would also be correct. Perhaps we should also examine Hajime's shoulders and see if we find any other condemning evidence.
Yeah, The culprit would have had plenty of time at night to estimate the strength of the impact through experimentation.
It's definitely not the attitude of someone who would ask for help if such a thing had actually happened.
The message was probably sent to Yuki by Hajime, using Yuri E-Handbook Plus to create an alibi. That way, he'd be able to make whoever witnessed the murder scene run up to the top of the tower to catch the culprit.
Now I see why he used a syringe with measurements on it to inject the anesthetic.
Allow me to explain my reasoning. Being unable to enter the monocruise once the slumbering hours occurred, the culprit was left with no option but to wait until morning. Therefore, it was crucial that they board the ship the moment the gates opened so they could play the part of the innocent. But Miss Kabuya stated that she exited the monocruise the instant the gates opened. Perhaps the two had a fateful encounter. Thus, the culprit had no choice but to ambush her in order to eliminate any possibility of her going to the bell tower. It would have completely jeopardized his carefully laid out plans after all.
I agree with Mikado. If you think about it, jumping off the top of the bell tower like that without anything to cushion your fall is just insane. It would have been a risky gamble. Even for Hajime, he wouldn't have done it unless he was forced to, due to some outside interference.
But, like, why did Ruko even go out that early in the morning? It makes her super suspicious, you know?
I told you already. I just wanted to get a head start on my investigation. With everyone's morale being boosted from the party, I felt motivated to really give it my all. But the murder made the whole thing pointless, of course.
Well, I think we finally put all the pieces together. Is there anything we're missing, Hajime?
Hey! Hajime! I still believe in you!
I admit, everything they've said seems to line up nicely. I'm not sure where to start.
Maybe that's because you're guilty?